Today we're starting a mini-series. We're going to build up and see how we use a sharpening system for the power tool user who needs to use hand tools to refine their woodworking. That sounds good? Stick around. Hey, so welcome back. One of the problems of having a break from woodworking and YouTube in general for over a year is that your hand tools that you rely on become blunt. So what's a better opportunity to invest and build up a sharpening system that is perfect for the power tool user like me, who needs to have sharp hand tools but doesn't have the time and the effort and the inclination to learn how to do everything by hand. Now on the bench here behind me you can see a whole host of stuff, and it's this stuff that we're going to use to build up our sharpening system over the next few videos. And once we get it built, we'll show how to use this and how you get the perfect edge on your hand tools. The process is going to start off with a bench grinder so I can get a perfect repeatable angle on my blades. I'm going to add some precision guides to my bench grinder to make sure I get repeatability and accuracy on my first pass of my sharpening system. To refine the sharp edge, to hone the sharp edge, we're going to use a variety of different diamond plates. We're going to make a honing block out of some scrap leather, some glue, some MDF and some honing compounds, and we'll be using a jig to make sure that we're doing that final angle, again repeatable, to maintain that sharpness over time. We're going to put the entire thing on a nice board so it's easy to maneuver around in my small workshop, so I can quickly take it out, set it onto the bench, take it away when I don't need it. So today we're going to start off by unboxing, having a look at and setting up the bench grinder. So here's our bench grinder. It's the Axminster AW200BG. Now this is a pretty generic type of model and I've just got it from my local Axminster store. Also got a dressing block, but we'll come back to that shortly. So let's unpack it and see what we get in the kit. Well, the first thing we get is some paperwork. We get a little brown envelope that's got a guard inside it. We get a little white envelope that's got a magnifying guard inside it. We get another little brown envelope with staples in it that has some fixing kits. We get a couple of plastic round things, some metal brackets which we assume are for the guide, and more polystyrene than I care to mention. Hate polystyrene. And then you get the bench grinder itself, and it's fair to say that this is pretty heavy. So there it is in all its glory, the Axminster Workshop AW200BG. Let's look at the specifications. Its rating is for workshop use. It's a single phase 550 watt motor, 230 volts, 50 Hertz. It runs at a speed of 2,980 revs per minute. It's got a wheel diameter of 200 millimeters and a wheel thickness of 25 millimeters. The center bore for the wheel is 15.88 millimeters. The overall weight of this is 17.5 kilograms. It comes fitted with two aluminium oxide wheels, the white wheels. This is an 80 grit and this is a 120. 80 grit is very, very aggressive, and if we're not careful we'll probably take our blades down too quickly. This one is about perfect, so if I can get the nice angle I want on my blades at 120 grit, that's perfect to go into the diamond stones. So this is the one we're probably going to use in anger. If you ever want to regrind an angle quickly and you're careful, then this will get you there incredibly quickly, even on hard steel blades that I have in my planes. There's not many features. There's no variable speed control. It's either on or it's off. It's got a small tray here which actually used for putting coolant in, water. So as you're using your blade, you can quickly dip it into the water to make sure you don't overheat the blade and damage it. The white stones are not the best on the market, but they're certainly better than the grey stones, which tend to generate a lot of heat in your tools. The white stones are a good compromise for the money, and they will cut through your blade, not over generating heat inside your blade. So they're a good compromise for woodworkers. It's got two built-in lights above the wheels so you can see what you're doing. And it's obviously got the eye guards that fit on in some way, shape or form, just to protect your eyes in use. So that's pretty much the bench grinder we're going to use and the key features of it. Setup is minimal, but let's get the thing set up so you can know how to do that. First job is we want to drop on these eye guards. In this guard here, you can see it's got a magnifier in the middle, and the magnifying guard is going to go on the 120 grit wheel. The other one is clear, and that goes on the 80 grit on this side. You get a couple of arm extensions that just lock it into place. Inside the bag you get 2 butterfly knobs and 2 corresponding washers for the butterfly knobs. And you also get these long bolts that's got a spring washer and a small washer on them as well. You want these smaller ones. Now these are obviously handed as well, so you want to put them so the arc goes up to the top. Take those long bolts, and there's a threaded hole there, and they just tighten down into position. Don't over tighten them because these are plastic, so you don't want to go mad on this. I've not made them super tight at this moment, I can still adjust them. Then take the guard and just release the screw that's on that guard, and then that just simply bolts onto the arm. Guards on. Now these are your tool guides, and they just simply screw onto the side. Again, they're handed, so you can see how they go on there. This one does have a token gesture at an angle for doing skew, chisels, etc. if you're a wood turner. And that is pretty much it. Your bench grinder is now set up. Now these metal guides that you get with most bench grinders aren't really fit for purpose for what we want to do. They're good for general use, I guess, but for what we want to do, they're not fit for purpose. Because what we want to be able to do is to take a blade and put the first bevel on it, with that bevel being 30 degrees, known as a primary bevel. And whether we're doing chisel work or whether we're doing planes, as woodworkers, we want that 30 degrees. So I want something that's going to allow me to lock in a 30-degree position here, so I get accuracy and repeatability of that primary bevel across all of my tools. These won't do it. So the first thing that you do with these is to take them off and throw them away. And what you do is you invest in something that's more suitable for the job. What I'm a huge fan of are these grinding tool rests from Veritas. And what these are is a much more substantial piece of kit that bolts in front of your grinder like that, and then you can adjust this angle and you can set that angle for your bench grinder, which is pretty good and pretty much what we want. Now eventually I'm going to build a grinding station somewhere here in my workshop, but for now this has got to be portable. So I've got to be able to use it on this bench, store it away and take it out when I need it. It's not a tool that's going to get used an awful lot, but when I do use it, it's going to pay for itself because all my tools will be nice and sharp and repeatable. So I now need to mount my grinder on some sort of platform that then allows me to mount these on that same platform, so I can set the angle and then take the entire thing away and bring it back together. So I'm now going to mount this on a piece of MDF. And it just so happens, here's a piece of MDF that I made earlier. Now before I go to the trouble of putting this onto the board and mounting it all, I just want to plug this in and see if the thing actually runs. I'm not going to use it yet, but just want to make sure at least it turns over, all the lights come on and everything looks balanced and there's no horrendous noises on this device. So when that's up to speed, there's very little vibration. The wheels aren't wobbling, they look well mounted. The lights are working. What more can you ask? So that's all I wanted to do for this moment in time, just to make sure it came up to speed and ran. There's no sparks, there's no noise, there's no horrendous vibrations, and that's good. That's what you'd expect a well-balanced thing to look like. We've not tuned the wheels yet. We'll do that when we get the Veritas angles set up on this one, but for now that's good enough. Unlike a lot of tools we have in the woodworking workshop, this does not have an electronic brake. I don't think grinders tend to in general, so they do run on. That is still running on as we speak. So Capex will slow down pretty quickly, your table store will slow quickly, your bandsaw will slow quickly. This will run on probably for a good 3, 4 or 5 minutes. Even at low speed, that's going to hurt you. And obviously these wheels are open, there's no guards, no protection, so they can be quite dangerous. And similarly, they take a few minutes to come up to speed. So you've got to make sure they're at speed before you use them, and you've got to make sure that they're completely stationary before you do anything else. So this is now stopped, it's unplugged, so the next thing I want to do is to actually mount this to the wood. Now, on the base here, hopefully you can see there's a couple of mounting holes. There's one here, and there's one here. and I'm hoping that they are parallel to this front edge here. So I'm just going to measure that to see. That one's coming in at 69 and this one is coming in at 69. So the good news is the moulding on that seems to be reasonable enough, and those two holes are parallel to this front face, which is nice. Yeah, and the reason I care is I want to make sure that when I mount these Veritas guides, they are square to the machine. And the easiest way of doing that is to make sure that the machine is square to a reference edge on the board. So I'm going to use this as a reference edge. I can mark a line square to the reference edge where I can drill for the bolts, and then I can mark this up and make sure that this is also square to the same reference edge, and therefore everything should square up. So the first thing I want to do is to cut this board down to length. Now in use I'll probably use some dog holes and some simple clamps just to make sure that this is all firm and safe, and I want the board to be slightly wider than the device. So I'm going to make the board flush with these edges here on side the grinder. So I'll come in with a square, I'll put that to the edge and I'll just move the grinder so that cowling just touches the edge there. And then I can bring in my square here, rest it up against that board, make a mark, and that length is going to be around about 403. Now in terms of the width of this, I want to be able to use these holes on my bench just to put some clamping pressure on here to stop the thing bouncing around. I also don't want it overhanging the bench, but I also want to have room for the Veritas guys to sit in. So I think that looks about perfect. So the back of the grinder will be 45 from this back edge. The Veritas stand will be 270 from the back edge, and the board will be 310mm wide overall. So there you go, there's our board. So we've now got a board that is 450 long and 310 wide. And we know we want the back of the grinder to be 45mm from the back edge, so we'll just put 45mm there, mark that line across. Just using a couple of squares to make sure that's more or less centre, looks good to me. And just using a set square to make sure that is square to the edge. And then I can carefully mark the centre point, which is going to be about there. And now I can square that centre point across, and then just use a rule to give me the centre point of that bolt. And mark those across so I know where my holes need to be drilled for my bolts. I'm probably going to use a 6mm coach bolt, a square nut and washer combination to hold this into place. That would seem good. So I need a clearance hole for the bolt and then a recess for the bolt's head that's about half the thickness of the board, and that should fit in perfectly with that base. So I just need to transfer those points to the back of the board, so I'll come in with a smaller drill to begin with and just drill through. Talk about made for the job. But that's okay, isn't it? And that looks pretty perfect to me. It lines up nicely with these holes at the back. I've got lots of working area at the front here, and it's not overhanging the front of the bench, which is a perfect position for me to work. So bench grinder on board, done. Next thing I want to do is to drop on these little Veritas adjustment things. Now one thing I love about Veritas is they're a quality tool. I do use quite a lot of Veritas gear in my hand tools along with Lee Nielsen, but Veritas are a quality gear, so I'll guarantee that this edge here is a good reference edge. Everything will be nice and square, it'll all be machined incredibly well. And I trust Veritas so much, I'm not even going to bother checking that. So I'm just going to line up this little hole here in the rest with that wheel so it looks pretty much center. Bring it forward so to give me some adjustment room, and that is where that's going to be. Square, line up that so it's nice and square. Just checking I'm still in the center point of that wheel, and that's where that's going to go. Now I'm putting two of these on, one for each wheel, so I'm just going to get that center mark there and transfer that there, and using exactly the same rest so it's in the same position, I can now come in, center this one up to the wheel. So now we've got the marking positions for our Veritas rests. I'm coming into MDF, so I'm going to use a coarse screw. And I'm just going to find that exact mark that we've just weighed up, which is there, 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 and there. Not tightening these all the way because I want to do some final adjustments. And I'm just making sure it's square and centered to the wheel, and then I can lock it in. And that is absolutely perfect. Now I'll come out the second one. So that's our grinder set onto a portable base that we know we can clamp down. I've got two high quality tool rests now. So the final thing to do before this job's finished is just to dress the faces of the stone. Dressing is really simple, but it is messy. Take a suitable dressing block. This is a diamond dressing block from axminster.co.uk. Set your rest to around about 90 degrees, not got to be too precise. Just take it into the face of the stone, parallel to the stone as much as you can, and then just hold it there lightly. Don't press into it too hard and let the wheel run. Now this will take the surface of this off, so it's going to have a lot of dust in the air, and dust is not our friend, so come in with some suitable breathing apparatus. Well, I'm glad I had my dust mask on for that job. That was a lot of dust. Thing to note, this is useless. This magnifying thing here, it magnifies it and distorts it at the same time, so you can't actually see anything through that guard. So I can see it upgrade to the guards at some point in the future. This one was okay, the clear one, but I'm not a fan of the magnifying one. Everything was smooth, everything was firm, no dramas whatsoever, so in use it seems to be okay. So there we have it, the AW200BG from Axminster. It'll do the job. We've already got rid of the old guards and upgraded these. So the Veritas ones, I've used these in the past and they are awesome. So I can highly recommend them. We'll look at those in use in a future video as well. So there you go. The first step in our sharpening journey is complete. We have the bench grinder. This is going to be used for putting the primary bevel on our sharpening blades. A 30-degree bevel on all our sharpening blades. We'll look at how we do that in a future episode once we've got the entire system built up. Well, this is the Axminster Workshop AW200BG. It's about £99 coming in from Axminster. It seems to do the job. It runs quiet, it runs smooth, there's no vibration inside it. We've got it mounted to a board for stability and safety. These plastic guards here are sort of kind of okay. The one with the magnifier is rubbish. Magnifies but distorts as well, so I don't really want to use that for precision work, so I need a better guard than this one. The clear one is actually okay, it actually did a reasonable job and protected me. We've got all the faces nicely dressed now, and we've got our quality tool clamps in place, so what more do you need? Next step on our journey is we're going to build a sharpening station using our diamond plates and making a leather honing pad. We'll look at that on the next video. Take care.